Ladies, gentlemen, and expeditioners of some ages, we've done a number of builds focused around making one singular character obscenely strong. We've talked about ways to make each character the sort of star of the show, but you may be wondering what the best combo of 3 builds is outside of things like that, because relying entirely on one character or one skill or one damage type like one element leaves you open to being countered by certain enemy types for one reason or another. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as the saying goes, and especially as you collect more and more color of Lumina and have more Lumina points available on each character, the amount of roles that a character can fill will grow. The more well-rounded those characters can become, or of course the more powerful and silly build combinations that you can make. Today we're going to go over what I believe to be the strongest grouping of 3 builds currently in the game, synergizing with each other and taking care of each other's weaknesses, filling in their holes, which is a combination of follow-up free aim shots Verso, Maelle with her Gommage gradient single target nuke, along with her other options as well of course, and then Sciel as a very flexible support, applying greater slow to all enemies, doubling one of the other party members' damage, and then also giving one of your party members a bonus set of turns as well. This setup has 2 really hefty main damage dealing characters inside of it, one with a focus on more spread out damage and the ability to easily deal with shields and flying enemies with a focus on light element, the other one with just obscene single target damage for mopping up bosses when you decide that you want the fight to just be over, and this one focuses on dark damage or void damage. Then you have an extremely flexible support in your 3rd slot that can boost whichever of those other 2 that you want, meaning that you can choose which party member to buff depending on the fight you're in and the enemies that you are against. Starting off then, let's begin with Maelle as a sort of classic standard character for a big, powerful build in Expedition 33. The weapon that you want for this, and pretty much anything else, is ideally Medallum. This starts you off in Virtuose stance by default at the start of combat, which is nice in itself, but not required for the build. And in fact, the only reason that we use this weapon specifically is that for whatever reason, it just results in more damage than any other weapon for Maelle. There was a bug with this weapon that they supposedly fixed. I think it's still bugged in some way because it's still just doing more damage. Even with shifting stats around to match the other weapons, Medallum is the best option. Then for the skills on Maelle, you want Last Chance. This will put Maelle to 1 HP, but refills your AP up to 9 and also puts you in Virtuose stance, or keeps you in Virtuose stance if you already were in that stance. Then we also have Phantom Strike, and this is just to give Maelle a nice multi-target hitting attack for a good pile of damage, for if you don't really want to just pump everything into single target damage, or if for whatever reason on a turn you don't have enough gradient charges, because our main big skill that we'll be using for damage on Maelle is her tier 3 gradient attack called Gommage. You get this by completing her character relationship quest stuff in Act 3, and it is the singular strongest single target damage hit that you can get in the game, at least as far as I'm aware. For the Pictos and Lumina abilities on Maelle, you essentially just want to lob on every single generic damage increase that exists in the game, but then also, of course, add on the ones that affect gradient attack damage, damage to stunned enemies, and importantly, damage with first hit, as you can line up your first hit with Maelle to be an absolutely massive chunk of damage. Add on the low health damage boosters as well, such as At Death's Door and Critical Moment if you need more crit chance, but we're hitting crit chance without it, so you get a bunch of bonus damage from doing this. You of course want the Cheater Pictos as well for the consistent bonus turns that offers, and how ridiculous that of course gets, and then you also want things like First Strike to make sure that you go before the enemy does, and a bunch of energy management in case combat lasts past the first couple of turns. The main thing I would suggest as a variation from my personal setup here is based around shield affinity. With my setup here as it stands, with everything I have equipped, you should be able to defeat anything in the game before it gets a single turn against you, even in New Game Plus, even multiple New Game Pluses, even on expert difficulty. But if you are running a weaker version of this for whatever reason, and you are having to deal with enemy attacks happening, and you are not confident with your dodges and parries, shield affinity is the main thing that makes us squishy, which is to say that it gives us 30% increased damage, but makes it so losing any shield points loses all shield points, which means with this on, we essentially have 1 shield. With it off, we will have 6 shields. If you want to lose damage but gain tankiness, drop off shield affinity, simple as that. For the attributes on Maelle then, you want 99 agility for the speed, 99 might for the damage, and then 99 defense for the scaling on the weapon as well. Next up then we have Verso, and he's going to be the one causing breaks on the enemy, as well as being your counter to flying enemies, to enemies with shields, and and just some good general output that you can adjust to hit any target you need in the moment. And honestly, in the majority of combats in the game, you'll probably kill everything with Verso before you even get to Maelle. The weapon that we're using for this is of course Simoso, as the strongest option that Verso has, and this comes from Simon down in the Abyss, which is pretty much the latest late game boss that you get that isn't part of the main story. You can use something like Blowdam as a weapon before that point, it's pretty solid, but once you do have Simoso, it is just incredible, as it gives you basically double damage on every skill hit by applying a second echo of that hit as light damage, and it also makes you extremely difficult to kill. It's worth mentioning, if you bring this setup into New Game Plus, you lose Verso as a character for Act 1, and while Gustav has access to all of Verso's weapons, he won't have the actual weapon effects on them, so you lose quite a bit of skill damage, you lose perfection ranks as well, but your free aim shot should still hard carry through the first act, and you have Gustav's skills as well of course, and then of course Maelle's damage is still doing what it is. That said, back to Verso, there are two skills you'll want for this. Phantom Stars lets you break every enemy on screen if their break bar is full, which it will be because of our setup. You don't need to use this often at all, and it's generally better to just focus on free aim shots, but it's nice to sort of have this in the back pocket just in case you need this. Your main skill of use that you will actually be using on Verso is Follow Up. What this does is a single hit of damage that does increasing damage for each free aim shot that you have fired during that turn, up to a maximum bonus at 10 shots fired. We can easily reach 10 shots fired with 2 AP remaining still, and this skill costs 2 AP when at S perfection rank, which we also will hit quite easily because free aim shots generate perfection extremely quickly, especially when you have as much energy based stuff as we do on Verso. Basically, any turn where we are at S rank and have the ability to fire enough shots to make it worth it, our goal is to use free aim shots until we get down to 2 AP, then use Follow Up for big damage on an enemy. While doing this, we will also build gradient charges, which can then be used by Maelle. We will also be breaking enemies and choosing which enemies to break when, so we have control over that. And as for how we do all of that, let's talk about our Pictos and Lumina. We have pretty much all the ones that we did for Maelle, with the exception of the ones that boost gradient attack damage, as well as the ones that boost first hit damage, because this is not based around doing big damage in a singular hit. Instead, we add on more AP management. We use combo attacks to add extra hits to our base attack, which both makes it easier to get gradient charges and gets us a lot of energy whenever we use base attack. We have charging attack to make each base attack hit generate gradient charge, as well as charging stun to make any hit against a stunned enemy generate some gradient charge as well. We combine those with the Sniper Pictos Lumina effect, which makes it so your first free aim shot each turn deals 200% increased damage and can apply break. So once per turn, your first free aim shot on Verso will apply break to your chosen enemy, which then lines up all the rest of our different buffs to be able to charge properly and do extra damage as a result. So our first shot of each turn will apply break, then the remaining shots work through charging stun to generate a bit of gradient charge on each shot. If you want more gradient charge, you end the turn with a base attack with charging attack and all of our combo attacks, and if you instead want more damage from Verso itself, you would use Follow Up. Aside from that, we have Auto Death and Survivor as a combo, and we use this to just make it so that we start every combat at 1 health no matter what. It's also worth noting that we are only building up to 6 shield points on 2 characters instead of a full 9 shield points on 1 character, because we are trying to spread our damage out a bit more evenly than a more standard single character nuke build. For the actual stats then on Verso, 99 agility both for speed and because it's our weapon's primary damage scaling stat, then 99 might for pure damage increase, and then 99 vitality as it is the secondary weapon scaling stat. Then finally today we have Sciel, and within this setup, she has a very clear purpose, which is just to make the rest of the party stronger. The weapon for her is L'Ethesson, which you get from the humanoid enemies when you return to Lumiere in Act 3. This weapon applies greater rush to all allies during Moon Phase, greater slow to all enemies during Sun Phase, and applies both during Twilight, as well as at level 20, giving Sciel plus 3 AP when she applies a buff or debuff once per turn. You will pretty much always be applying buffs with Sciel, which helps her AP management significantly, but the big part of this is that it just sort of will be automatically applying greater slow to all enemies in every combat while doing your normal combat flow regardless, which lowers the enemy's speed. This means you get more turns relative to the enemy, often meaning you get more turns before your enemies first turn, and that is one of the most overpowered things that you can do in this entire game. But then on top of that, we have the actual skills that we use on Sciel as well, of which there are two really important ones, and one that is just sort of also good to have. Fortune's Fury doubles the damage of one targeted ally on their next turn taken. This is super versatile because obviously, depending on the situation, you can use it on Verso if you want to, or you can use it instead on Maelle. Verso would be just for wreaking havoc on a multi-target fight or through flying enemies. Maelle if you want to just one-tap a boss with significant overkill. The other main skill for Sciel is Intervention. This makes the targeted ally play immediately and gain 4 AP, but with the cheater Pictos, which all the characters should have, they get their bonus turn as well. So this skill uniquely sort of breaks one of the main rules of the game, which is that you cannot have more than one bonus turn per natural turn. Because what this essentially does is if you have the cheater Pictos on Sciel, you can use Fortune's Fury on her natural turn, then use the second turn from the cheater Pictos for Intervention, and that will start a fresh natural turn for a different player, which then lets them generate another bonus turn with their own cheater Pictos. So it's basically 3 turns for the price of 1, and pretty much the only way of making that happen consistently as well. The third one worth picking up then is All Set, which applies Sciel and Powerful and Rush to all allies. You will only need this if combat goes more than a few turns, which it should never do because of the damage output that we have, but just in case you need to reapply some buffs. As for the Pictos and Lumina, the only really required ones on Sciel in this setup are some AP management, so she can actually cast the skills that we want to cast, then also Cheater and First Strike of course, and then our main auto death setup is going to be on Sciel so that we can actually debuff enemies and buff our allies at the start of combat. This involves auto death to make us die at the start of combat, combined with breaking death to make us fully charge every enemy's break bar when we die, burning death to apply 3 burn stacks to all enemies when we die, energizing death to apply AP to allies when we die, shielding death to give extra shield points to allies when we die, protecting death to give Sciel to allies on die, as well as powerful on Sciel to give powerful when we apply Sciel, rush on powerful to give rush when we apply powerful, along with greater powerful and greater rush to get the stronger version of both of those buffs. Then finally, to finish off that sort of combo is Second Chance, so that after we die at the start of combat and launch off all of those lovely effects, we then come right back to life and can use Sciel properly as a support too. If you have more Lumina points on Sciel than I do here, you can then invest them past this into stuff like Death Bomb to do damage when we die at the start of combat. Otherwise, just build some generic damage increases so she has a bit of output in case you ever want to do damage with her too. And I do actually recommend also having Sniper on her, just so you have a second character that can apply break with a free aim shot, especially if there's any enemies that happen to be resistant to light damage. For the stats, the actual attributes on Sciel, you want to get to 99 agility for speed, and because it's our secondary weapon scaling stat, you want 99 might for pure damage, and then you want 99 luck as our primary weapon scaling stat. With that, you now know how to put it all together, so what about actually playing with this setup? Here's a bit of a trick to set your turn order that I don't see people talking about generally, which is that at least with the First Strike Lumina effect, you will always go in the order your party was created, excepting for deaths and revives of course. Specifically, if you remove all party members so you only have one, they will then be your first party member, and that means they will be the one who goes first regardless of the speed stat. When you then add a party member, that will be party member number 2. They will go second by default. Then the third party member will go third. This does get interrupted and overwritten by deaths, so Sciel, being our auto death, will always go third regardless of the order that you put her. And all that to say, ideally you want to set it up so that Verso goes first, and then on your first turn, Verso will fire out a bunch of free aim shots until you hit 0 AP. If there are flying targets or shielded targets, you want to prioritize those just to get rid of the sort of annoying things that Maelle doesn't deal with very well. Then you want to use base attack on the biggest priority enemy, and bonus points if you also have the exposing attack Pictos equipped, which I didn't, to make this apply defenseless as well. Altogether, this should generate quite a bit of gradient charge. You should either be at S perfection rank or close to S rank at the end of the turn, cheater procs, and then turn 2 on Verso, fire off shots until you hit 2 AP. Then use follow up on a target of your choosing, and it's also worth considering that your first free aim shot of each turn triggers break on an enemy, so you may want to hit a different enemy with the first shot just for that purpose. If you are in Act 1 of New Game Plus, you will not have access to follow up because you'll be playing as Gustav, who doesn't have that skill, in which case just go fully into free aim shots and base attacks and you'll still kick some serious butt. After that, the next turn will go to Maelle, who does nothing for the first 2 turns, just making sure she stays in Virtuose and putting herself yourself back to 1 HP by using Last Chance to do so, and then using Last Chance again. Then it will be Sciel's turn, apply Fortune's Fury to either Maelle or to Verso, and then generally you want to use Intervention on Verso to give him 2 more turns before Maelle goes, especially if you need more gradient charges before her turn. But if you are down to only 1 enemy left, or if there's something you really just want to get rid of immediately, then you can also throw Intervention onto Maelle and just have her launch some big single target damage. That pretty much does it for today then, everyone. The best coherent, cohesive, synergistic setup of 3 builds slammed and mixed together in my personal opinion, capable of doing massive, just insane damage and pretty much just bullying any enemy in the game before they can even touch you, even on New Game Plus, even on Expert difficulty, just completely and fully obliterating. I hope you've all enjoyed this, and I hope you have fun using these builds too if you try the setup out for yourself. Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.